Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Health and Human Services Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Gunther.
Here.
Alderwoman Martin. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
Chairwoman Ingracia.
Present.
6 present, you have quorum.
Thank you. The first item we have up is approval of the minutes from the February 3rd meeting. If you've had a chance to look at those in your Google Drive, I would entertain a motion on getting those approved.
Residential planning.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Chairwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
6 aye votes.
Great. I'm excited about our session. I think this is going to be a great committee to serve on again, and looking forward to working with all of you. I'm going to switch things around on the agenda just a little bit. We have a couple of board bills to hear, and then one item for discussion that the Alderwoman from the 27th was interested in touching base on. But Dr. Eccles, while we have you here, as you know, many of us have been reaching out to you over the past few weeks, really interested in hearing an update on youth sports and when we will be possibly aligned with the county. I'm hoping you might be able to quickly comment on when we can expect some updated orders and what that might look like, so we can address concerned parents and our constituents.
Do you want to do that now, or you want to do that after the board?
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So the intent of the guidelines in the city of St. Louis is protect the health of our residents. And so for youth, we know that a lot of the youth were not eligible to receive COVID-19 vaccine. So we wanted to make sure there were protocols in place and resources in place for them to get tested. So then, in the event that they were COVID positive, they could be properly isolated, and to minimize the impact of their illness on the not only their team but on the school. And so last year, the City of St. Louis Department of Health, we met with not only the school system administrators, but we also met with all the athletic directors across all the school systems. And the guidelines that were established were agreed upon from as a collective. We follow the science, so we use guidelines from the CDC, National Society of Infectious Disease, peer-reviewed journals, as well as we looked at the social vulnerability data for the City of St. Louis to come up with those guidelines. Over the time, the science did not change. So that's why our guidelines has been really consistent. So the last time they were updated was in September of 2020. Now that with the new updates from the FDA, we are relooking at those guidelines to consider waiving the requirements for testing for those who participate in medium and high frequency contact sports. According to the latest statement that was issued by the CDC, there is still a higher risk of transmission amongst those individuals who participate in indoor and close contact sports. And so that's something that we also have to take into consideration. You know, even though the guidelines have changed, there's still a significant percentage of the population that is not eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. So we just wanted to make sure there were processes and protocols and resources in place to protect the health of youth. Some of the feedback that we got from the school systems over the course of the year was that had testing not been a requirement, they would have had outbreaks, and that would have impacted schools and in-person learning. And so because of the resources that we provided and made available to the schools, they were able to keep schools open. When we compared the number of outbreaks among school-age youth with the surrounding jurisdictions, we did really well. We really had no major outbreaks in the city of St. Louis as it relates to in-person learning, and that's because of the protocols that were in place. And so we are grateful that the schools were open to actually dialoguing with us to come up with the guidelines. We also were grateful for the athletic directors who participated and participated not only in the development of the guidelines, but also they continued to participate in dialogue that occurred over the course of the semester. So we didn't just come up with guidelines and leave them hanging. We had regularly scheduled meetings, because one of the things that was important was for me to reach out to them to see if there were any major challenges that they were experiencing. I know that sometimes there were some delays in getting testing results, so we worked with the service provider to address those issues as best we could. But overall, they were really elated with about the fact that they were able to keep schools open over the course of the year and provide in-person learning for individuals.
Yeah, no, and I've heard positive feedback as well and appreciate that. It seems like those were, in my experience in the sixth ward, middle school and high school students. And I think that there's also a real interest in the younger kids, especially this summer, wanting to play soccer or baseball or track or other things. And so are you waiting until each age group is allowed to receive the vaccine before you're considering opening up play, or what's the timeline look like?
No, I think what we'll likely end up doing is just waiving the requirement of making the resources available. So for those leagues and those schools who want to offer continued testing, we'll make those resources available, work with partners to make them available. But we also want to make sure that the parents understand the risk that still remain, particularly for children who are not eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. When we look at the data for youth as well, so for school-age youth, they still account for about 5.8% of COVID-19 cases. So there's a large percentage of youth within our community that still are susceptible to COVID-19 infection. So we're mindful of that as well. And again, that number, that 5.8% is still, that's low compared to what we've seen in other jurisdictions, but that's because of the work that not only the schools and the leagues have done to protect the students and the staff, but also the work that the parents and guardians have done over the course of the pandemic.
Great. Alderwoman Green, do you have any questions on this topic?
Not at this time. Thanks so much.
Alderman Gunther? Alderwoman Martin? Alderwoman Middlebrook?
Sorry, it's
No,
Sarah.
thank you.
Sorry. Thanks, Dr. Eccles, for coming and talking to us. So I have the Carondelet Y in my ward, and so I just am trying to get a little bit of clarity on, what they will be able to allow. I understand that, testing for them is testing youth for the, it's just not that feasible for them to do. So it's kind of either they can forego, either not have to test or forego some of their activities. So it sounds like that they will be able to resume their contact sport activities soon.
And so we worked with the Y last summer, actually, and they submitted a plan and they utilized COVID-friendly activities. And so we hadn't had any issues with the Y, so we hadn't received any updated plans from them as of yet. So, but we're working with all the agencies, particularly those who are holding day camps and so forth during the summertime, to make sure that their protocols and so forth are in alignment with city requirements. So as soon as I hear from them, I can reach back out to you.
Okay, yeah, because I talked to the director and he basically thought that it was his understanding, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something as well, but it was my understanding that it's his understanding that unless they test, they cannot resume those sports. Like there's no plan that in their minds that they can come up with where they test. So that's
so there were so the restrictions were only for medium and high frequency contact sports. So that's what the issues were. So for example, if they were playing teams outside of the region, or they had large groups, then that they would need to be testing those individuals. But if they just had pods of students, and this is what all the schools started out with, so they just had pods of students who were socially distanced while they did the skill drills and so forth, they didn't need to be tested because that was low frequency contact. So only for medium and high frequency contact sports were testing required because of the risk of transmission. but for low frequency contact sports, and those sports types are outlined in the guidelines. But I'll work with them. So we want to make sure we're not creating any additional barriers for them to provide enrichment activities for the youth and families that utilize their services.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Alderwoman Rice?
Thank you, Dr. Eccles. And I appreciate the correspondence on this as well. So you're saying we're going to be updating, we're going to be moving closer to what the county has in place, or is that still to be seen if we're going to be aligning exactly with where the county's at?
Right. So with the county, so there's testing isn't required in the county. So what we would do is, because testing has been required and some of the organizations still desire for testing to occur, we'll make that option still available. And if they want if they need the resources, they could reach out to the health department. So we want to make sure that if they want to offer testing, that option is available.
Got it. Okay. And then it looks like there was a question, and I know we don't normally do this, but I think it is helpful to just say if an organization is wanting to move forward, they contact just the COVID hotline number to get in contact with the right person at the health department to create a plan, or how should organizations work through the health department?
They should submit their plan to health, that's HEALTH, at stlewis-mo.gov, which is the health department's general email, and I'll get that. And then I'll review the plan and provide feedback to them. And the turnaround time has been really short. So we try to make sure we're approving plans within 24 to 48 hours. But sometimes as workload needs increase, we have to make some adjustments, but we try to make sure we communicate with them, at least that let them know that we received the plan, and that they will be providing feedback.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Alderman Todd, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Eccles. I next wanted to move on. Alderwoman Boyd, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thanks for bringing to my attention something that I think you had some concerns about. Could you quickly articulate the request you made for Dr. Eccles to report to the committee, and then we'll let Dr. Eccles respond and see if committee members have questions?
I am having, we had a resource Wednesday yesterday, and we had Charles Pratt on the call. He was our first guest speaker for residents of the 27th ward. And so the question that I have is in regards to animal control, and I'm trying to reach out to find out if it's a twofold. And I did ask Charles this information. Do we as legislators need to look at stronger legislation in regards to the health department and being proactive, and the response in regards to stray dogs that are occurring in our communities? We have a property on Horny that we have been dealing with for over a year, and it's a guy that's deaf that has over 20 dogs on his property. His property needs to be condemned, and now he has taken over a LRA property. We have had reports of the dogs running after residents and trying to attack on. Charles informed me yesterday he's okay, it's not a problem. Dr. Eccles, it is a problem, because you wouldn't want to live next to that in your community. And these people don't want to live like that. We have an IKEA that has a mentally ill person that's handling this dog, that's letting this dog run wild on this block, which is a gated area, has people jumping on their cars, and they're not getting any response from the health department or the nuisance people. We called a meeting with the nuisance people, and their response to the residents were, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, so you have to start all over. So it's just frustrating me. Now it's getting warm, and we have these dogs that are running loose. I did ask Mr. Pratt what proactive things is the health department doing to prevent these things from happening? And so the stray dogs are not just in in the North Quarter, they're in all over the city. And so people are now, we're coming up with getting reports of dog fights, people mistreating dogs, dogs running loose. So that's the issue that I'm having. And I'm trying to find out from the health department, what are you all doing in regards to address these issues and be proactive? And that's my issue. That's my question.
Thank you, Alderman Board, for that information. So there's a couple of things that the health department does. So we do proactively provide information to all city residents regarding responsible pet ownership. We've issued educational information. We've also used our social media platforms to get information out. And we do that every year because we know that when it warms up, there's increased reports of animals roaming in neighborhoods and so forth. And it creates a situation where individuals do not feel safe. And so we've continued those efforts. However, I know that this issue that you referred to during your comments is something that has been ongoing. And so we've actually detailed staff to that particular neighborhood, to that particular address several times a week. And it's when at least the reports that I've received is that when the staff are there, they don't see anything, but then we get the calls. So the other thing that we are doing is ongoing surveillance in areas where we're getting more reports. And so we continue to conduct those activities, but it's only if we see something while our staff are out there. That's what we have to act on. For strict enforcement, so I think, strict enforcement is one thing, but if you don't have the capacity to actually do that, then you're just really setting the agency up for failure. So one of the things that we haven't been able to do is bring on additional animal care and control officers because of the hiring freeze in the city. And so we have a limited capacity, but we do respond to calls as quickly as we possibly can. In addition to that, we leave information, in addition to using social media platforms to get information out, we also leave information at the doorsteps for at the address where we're receiving complaints. And so those activities continue. But again, we have very limited capacity at this point because of hiring restrictions. And so that's, but we're doing the best that we can. But we will continue to do ongoing surveillance, particularly for that, for the areas where we get a lot of calls, to make sure our staff are out, at least out in the community. And so there is an issue that's identified, they can respond in a more timely manner.
So you saying that the city has a freeze on all hiring?
Well, for animal care and control officers, we have not been able to fill those positions.
So is it a freeze or they can't fill it?
We've been informed that that's a freeze.
Okay, and so so the challenge is, from my understanding, you all only have 2 animal control inspectors for the whole city?
3, yes, and so there's some vacant positions that we've been working to fill, but we haven't been able to fill them.
Okay, and so I'm sorry to take over your meeting, Chair, but I have one more question. So as legislation, what do we need to do to ensure, because my concern is children and families being safe with these dogs running loose, and then not to put this misleading information that pit bulls or the danger, dogs, and they're not, because people don't understand. People train these dogs to be mean and attack people. So what can we do legislative that can be enforced to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen?
So the current legislative requirements are actually pretty good, but the issue is if you don't have staff or individuals to enforce it, then that you're handicapped, right? And so what we really need is just additional staff capacity to actually do the work.
Okay, so you all aren't doing any proactive things. You're just putting out fires as they come along.
No. So we work with our communications team to get information out. So we work with our stakeholders. So that work actually started months ago. We're also, again, when we go out to areas, residences where we receive complaints, we speak with the individuals, and if they aren't there, we will leave information and then also call. We have a good contact number for them. So there's activities that are being done, but it's not at the scale where we need them there's not at the scale where we need them to be done.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chair. That's all I have. You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing the issue to our attention. Alderwoman Green, do you have any questions? Alderman Gunther? Alderwoman Martin? Alderwoman Middlebrook?
None at this time, thank you.
Sure. Alderwoman Rice?
Not right now. Thank you so much.
Alderman Todd?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have the Alderwoman from the 4th with her hand up. I'm assuming you'd like to inquire. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I just have a question for Mr. Eccles. What do you do when you have a dog that gets loose consistently, even to the point where they have caused our male person to be injured? She's been attacked twice, and our male was not delivered for about a week. So what can we do to keep this from continuing to happen? What types of recourses do we have towards this person that, you know, is negligent with letting his dog get loose? So like I said, our male person has been attacked twice, and which caused our male not to be delivered for a week. And all we get in our mail is that due to a dog situation, your mail is not being delivered. But that's not fair to the residents that live on that block.
Right. So the first step to take is when any incident like that happens, the health department should be notified, and we will follow up with on those complaints. If there's any issue where a dog attacks an individual, there are additional steps that we take because if it's an unprovoked bite, then we go through the process of deeming a dog or animal potentially dangerous, and that has its own set of weight with it. And then if there are subsequent issues, we will may ultimately have to confiscate the animal. But we want to make sure we're working with the owners as well to make sure they understand their responsibility as pet owners and what the city requirements are. So that's one of the things that we've learned over time, is that some residents just aren't familiar with the city requirements, and so we have to continue to do a lot of education, because owning pets isn't just a simple task. So making sure they're well aware of their responsibilities as pet owners is really critical. But in any incidents where an animal attacks another animal, or animal attacks a human being, those instances should be reported to the health department, and we'll follow up on those.
What I know you guys probably try to get in contact with the neighbor, but what happens when they go to the door and there's no one there in order for them to, I guess, communicate with? So what's the next step?
So we'll leave information at the door. So we'll leave information for the health department that has the health department's contact information. And then we don't just stop there. We'll follow back up with them. So it's not, we don't just knock once and then, leave and then think that things are going to resolve on their own. We do follow up, because our job, our duty is to make sure we're making contact with that individual. So if we have to go back 2 and 3 times before we reach them, that's what we do.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dr. Eccles, and thanks, Alderwoman Evans and Boyd, for joining us for that part of the meeting. Appreciate your concerns. It sounds like possibly a good conversation for some of the budget hearings that we'll be having moving forward this session. I'm going to let the Vice Chair of the committee, Alderwoman Middlebrook, take over the meeting so I can present Board Bills 13 and 14. Are you ready, Alderwoman?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Okay. So now we're going to hear Board Bill 13, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingracia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm hoping you received a couple of days ago a copy of a committee substitute to Board Bill 13, and I would like to move to put that before us.
Second.
Thank you. I'm sorry it has been moved in second. So can you please proceed?
Would somebody maybe like to do previous role?
I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Martin wasn't on previous role.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we get a roll call?
Alderwoman Green,
Aye.
Alderman Gunther, Alderwoman Martin,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Chairwoman Ingracia,
Aye.
Alderman Gunther. 6 aye votes.
Thank you.
So
Can we proceed?
yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So now we have before us the committee substitute to Board Bill 13, which is really just some changes in form. The City Councilor's office didn't have an opportunity to review it before it got introduced. And so if it's okay with you, I'm just going to kind of go over the actual substance of the bill. And if you have specific questions about the changes, I'm happy to answer those. But generally, this is, I'm excited about this grant that the health department applied for and we'll be able to accept with this authorizing legislation. It's an early diversion program for individuals who have serious mental illnesses and co-occurring disorders. And it avoids potential arrest using targeted outreach and behavioral health co-response and then law enforcement training. It's about $1.6 million over the course of 5 years and requires a match from the health department's budget, which they've committed to of around $131,000. There is an attachment included, which is really just the notice of the award and some of the terms and conditions of the grant. I think we all know that we have serious issues with high rates of incarceration in the city of St. Louis. It's estimated that about 18% of our jail population does suffer from some mental illness. And so this is a great way to direct them in a positive place before they end up in jail or unhoused or in other situations that make them incredibly vulnerable and sometimes continue in the system for a long time. Dr. Eccles, if you would like to speak on some of the more specific information, and then I guess we will open it up for questions.
Actually, I think you covered it really well. So making sure we don't minimize the number of individuals who are connected to our criminal justice system because who may have mental illness. So instead of incarcerating them, making sure they're connected to proper behavioral health and support services is really the ultimate goal. And so this will be the activities for this project will be closely monitored, and we're working with our agency to make sure that we'll be compliant with federal guidelines and reporting requirements.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll take questions from members of the committee. Alderwoman Green.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but this is really exciting. And I'm glad to see movement in this direction. I think this is very positive for the city. Thanks.
Alderman Gunther. Alderwoman Martin.
No, thank you.
Alderwoman Rice.
Thank you. I do have a question. So is this funding any staff positions for within the health department or within the jails itself, or is it just for training of currently existing law enforcement officers to be handling folks with mental illness? And
so the health department will be contracting with behavioral health response. So because they have licensed mental health services staff, behavioral health services staff. And so the health department, we just didn't have the capacity. So oftentimes what we'll do is if we're eligible for a particular funding opportunity, we'll partner with the agency that already has the capacity to lift the work. And so that's the case here. So we'll partner with Behavioral Health Response. And then there will be some training that will be provided for the Behavioral Health Response staff and other partners that will be participating, including law enforcement.
Okay, so I guess the question is, where will folks funded by this grant or this partnership here, where will they interact with people who are arrested? Is this part of the deployment of social workers from 911, or is this sort of a jail intervention, or like at what point will they be interacting with people?
So this is before they get to jail. So this is,
Okay.
we get on 911. So essentially 911 diversion. So if there's someone calls and it's a mental health or a behavioral health related issue, instead of them being connected to the police, they'll be connected to Behavioral Health Response, who can then provide the proper psychosocial support to those individuals.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm really supportive of that program. I guess the sort of follow-up question there is, if we have not interacted with, or if the behavioral health folks have not interacted with someone and they do get into the jail, does this also encapsulate, an attempt to handle those folks differently, better than they're currently being handled in the jail, if we identify that intervention needs to happen after they've already made their way into the Justice Center or into booking? Or is this sort of just all on the front end?
This is primarily on the front end, but we are having discussions about, what other actions need to be taken to make sure that there's proper support for individuals who have mental health or behavioral health issues, and they end up being incarcerated. How do we best support them? Then also, not only how do we best support them while they're incarcerated, but when they're released, how do we help them reacclimate to society and connect them to the proper resources that they need?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And it was just my concern that, sometimes it may start as a mental health issue. Right. And then once someone is already engaged in the justice system, then how do we maintain proper resources? So that's great. Madam Clerk, if you could add me as a co-sponsor, I'd be happy to support this.
Will do.
Could I be added as a co-sponsor as well?
Can you add me as well? Please add me, Alderman Todd.
Me too, please, Sarah.
You have a good night.
So
Okay,
far,
Alderman Todd, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay, and myself, I would like to be added. I'm Alderwoman Middlebrook. Thank you.
okay, I think Morton. Okay. So I have so far Alderwoman Rice, Alderwoman Green, Alderman Gunther, Alderman Todd, Alderwoman Middlebrook, and Alderwoman Martin. Is that right?
Looks like Alderwoman Boyd would like to be added as well.
Okay, got it.
I have a question also. So walk me through. So this bill is because I'm kind of challenged with this social worker with police situation. I'm really feeling challenged about this. And so mental illness is alive and well in our community. And so people have been putting it under the covers for too long. But I guess my question, who is actually saying Pam is mentally unstable and needs service? How does the police knowing? Because we've had too many instances, and I can only speak for my ward, where people are mentally unstable and the police just say, okay, it's nothing we can do, and they leave. And so it takes 5 or 6 attempts or somebody getting hurt for police to be aggressive to say. I mean, we had a resident where the son had hit the brother with a TV in the face, an Xbox game, the whole thing. And the police wouldn't do anything till the last policeman came and said, I got to get you some help. And they finally admitted this kid, but the challenge that I'm having, they let him back out And so DePaul's is not saying what medication, what to follow up. So that's the challenge I'm having, you know, and it's back to the dog situation. The person is mentally unstable, and the police that came said, oh, it's nothing wrong with him. So I'm just trying to figure out who is actually diagnosing these people. And I'm like Alderwoman Rice, you know, the follow-up. I don't see processes happening to help these people get the help that they need. And then, you know, in the workhouse, I knew they were working on a program where they were putting mentally ill separate and started working on them. So I don't know what happened with that. So I'm just trying to figure out from day one, if Pam is aggressive and causing issues, who is to say Pam is unstable and needs to be hospitalized or needs help? Who's doing that?
Great question, Alderwoman Board. So the way it will work is, so when the 911 dispatchers gets the call, so they have the 911 dispatch, they're trained to take calls from the community. And so they identify something that sounds more like a behavioral health issue. What they can do, instead of contacting the police and having the police come out and having the situation where they say, this is a mental health issue, there's nothing for us to do. Instead of them contacting police, they can contact behavioral health response, who can then contact them and connect them to appropriate services, not law enforcement, but behavioral health, mental health services. And that way you reduce the number of, the redundancy of calls and the numerous attempts that, you know, where police come out and then there's nothing that can be done. But by connecting them to the appropriate service on the front end, you streamline the process and make it a more efficient process and connect the people to the services that they really need. So does that make?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I call 911 and say I have a person that had hit my child with a TV in the face, they wouldn't send the police. They would send the mental health services.
But they will ask specific questions. So they have to ask questions to make sure they are properly triaging the call, right? So they have set questions that they have to ask in order to identify if it's a behavioral health issue, or if this is more of a criminal issue, those types of things. So they're properly trained, and they will triage the call appropriately. So if it's a behavioral health issue, then they contact behavioral health response to make sure that they're connecting to the right services.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eccles.
I don't have anything further, and I'd appreciate your favorable consideration on Board Bill 13 committee substitute.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call? A roll call for Board Bill number 13?
We have to have someone to make the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we get a motion to accept Board 13?
I move we pass Board Bill 13 committee substitute out with the do pass recommendation.
Second.
Can we? Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Chairwoman Negracia.
Aye.
7 aye votes.
Thank you. We can move on to Board Bill number 14, sponsored by Alderwoman Negracia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Similarly to Board Bill 13, there are some changes that the city councilors made subsequent to me introducing the bill. There's nothing of substance, just some formalities to make sure the wording was correct. This is another opportunity that the city has applied for via the health department for 2 different grants. The first one is award of up to approximately $71,000 from the Missouri Department of Health and Human Services. It is a grant that will provide some additional funding assistance to help with case investigation and contact tracing for the city of St. Louis. And then there was an additional $5,000 from the National Association of County and City Health Officials. And that is $5,000, and that will provide approved activities that build operation readiness capabilities to meet COVID-19 emergency preparedness and response. And attachment B on Board Bill 14 committee substitute outlines the specifics on what the money will be expended for under the $5,000 grant. And it's my understanding that the $71,000 grant doesn't have the level of detail that the $5,000 grant does. And I would love to hear from Dr. Eccles with more specifics for the committee before we open it up for questions.
Yeah, so for the epidemiology and laboratory capacity CARES Act grant, which is the CDC funded program, this is a pass-through. These are pass-through funds that are coming to the health department from the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. And the goal is really to help provide assistance with surveillance activities, which include contact tracing, reporting, disease investigation, and other activities related to the COVID-19, the city's communicable disease COVID-19 response. And so that's how those funds will be utilized. And so they're very flexible. And so we'll be using those funds to cover any gaps or areas of improvement that have been identified. And then for the Operational Readiness Award from the National Association for County and City Health Officials, that's really important as well, because as we've learned, emergency preparedness and response plays a critical role, not only in preparing the jurisdiction for national man-made disasters, but also for the public health emergencies, such as the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues that may arise. And so we'll be using those funds to increase our capacity and capability to provide a sufficient response in the event that there's a future public health emergency. And that the activities will be led by the Emergency Preparedness Program and the Communicable Disease Bureau in the health department.
I'm happy to take questions, and I'm sure Dr. Eccles is as well.
Alderwoman Green, do you have any questions?
Thank you. So understanding is this is just to sort of plug gaps in COVID response. So as of right now, we don't have maybe exact specifics, but it'll give us that flexibility going forward as sort of needs arise as the pandemic continues.
Absolutely. So for example, one need that has been identified is the need for additional credits for our Qualtrics program. So we've used Qualtrics to monitor individuals who were close contacts to COVID positive individuals. And so because we're using that platform so much over the course of the pandemic, we started running low on credits. And so we can use this fund to purchase additional credits. So as additional close contacts are identified, we can be able to monitor them appropriately. So that's one example where we'll be using these funds.
Okay, sounds good. No further questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Gunther.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Martin.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just was wondering on the contact tracing, what are we doing now for can you give me an example of how we're using contact tracing now, and then how this can help benefit, how the additional funds will benefit what we're doing now?
Sure. So for contact tracing, so the standard way of doing contact tracing is you have staff that will contact, you have a case and they let you know their contacts, their close contacts, and then they provide their contact information, and we'll, and our disease investigator will contact their contacts daily for 14 days while they're under quarantine. So that's the way the typical program would work.
So we are still doing that with, I'm sorry, go ahead.
For the pandemic, because of the number of cases that we were receiving related to COVID-19, we had to automate our process a little bit because of the lack of capacity. At the beginning of the pandemic, we only had 4 disease investigators, which was insufficient. And so in addition to bringing on additional disease investigators, we also wanted to utilize another platform. And so some of the contacts opted to use electronic reporting. And so we use a Qualtrics. So the Qualtrics platform allows us to notify them either via text or email. They let us know which option they want to use. And so we'll send them a notification twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And they'll let us know if they have any symptoms. They also provide do a temperature check. And that way we're able to monitor them to see if they're having any change in their symptom profile over the course of their quarantine period.
Okay, thank
So
you.
right now those activities are still happening. So I know some other jurisdictions have opted to not investigate cases, but we feel like that wasn't best practice. And so we're still doing the case investigation as well as contact tracing. It has become more difficult. Contact tracing has become more difficult just because sometimes people don't know where they're exposed. When you have a community-wide spread of any condition, sometimes people just don't know. And so that's we're dealing with some of the issues or some of the issues that come along with just community-wide spread of SARS-CoV-2.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Rice,
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions. Can I get a motion to accept Board Bill 14?
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Can I just comment really quickly? I think we need to approve Board Bill 14 committee substitute, please.
Okay, I'm sorry, can we get a motion to approve Board Bill 14 committee substitute?
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Is that okay? Was that a motion for previous roll? I think that works, right?
Second.
I'm sorry, nobody has been able to hear me. Yes, we did have a motion and second, so awesome.
Thank you for your support, and Alderwoman Middlebrook, thank you for taking over the hearing for me for a few minutes. It's great to have you as vice chair. On the remainder of the agenda, we don't have any resolutions for review. Does anyone have any announcements? And I think everyone is here, so we are okay to adjourn. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Sorry, I'm really out of this.
Everybody's sleeping this morning.
Yeah, thanks for your time with us this morning, Dr. Eccles. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.